Hello everyone, I'm Ade. I'm an intermediate over the board chess player, and today I'm trying something new. This is my first ever Puzzle Survivor video. My highest score was I think 36, so I'll be trying to see how long I can survive. So we go again. So I'll be trying as much as possible to explain my move. Obviously, there's an issue with back rank. So after rook c1 check, the only move is rook d8, rook d1, and rook takes d1 is made. So rook d1, rook takes d1 checkmate. And here there's a back rank issue again. So after rook e1 check, there's no way for the king to escape. It would have been nice if the king is on g1, but I think rook e1. So why does rook c1 not work? Rook c1, rook c1 check, rook d1, rook takes d1 is still mate, but I think that's just a little bit. Yeah, so I can't even play rook e1. That would have been a mistake. So this is why I said I need to do a lot of tactics. So rook e1 check doesn't work because the king can't take. So absolutely playing rook c1 check is the best move in this position. I would have blundered that. So obviously rook takes queen takes e1 check. There's nothing defending the rook on e1, so queen takes e1 check. And here so if bishop takes, let's say bishop takes f5, queen takes f5 check, queen f6, queen f6, queen h5. So bishop takes f5, queen takes f5 check, queen here, there's queen h6 check, and if king g7, king g7, queen g4, is my king escaping? Yeah, I think I'll be up a pawn at some point. I'll be up a rook, because if the king moves now, so let's say king g8. Yeah, I don't trust. I think I'll just take this. Is just a pure blunder. If I take, there's no this, of course, so the queen has to take with check. But after queen f6, there's only there's no queen c5 check. The only check available is to give a check on h5. Yeah, and I think after king g8, I guess black escape. So I'll take. Yeah, so taking was the move. So obviously the black egg is trapped in the mating net. So after rook h5 check, the king can reach here, so the king can go here, and that will be mate. So rook h5 is checkmate. So rook f2 check, there's king g1, and after rook h2 check, no, after rook g1 check, the king can always come back. So to stop that, I'll probably just play rook f2 check, and there's no king g1, so that will be mate. Queen h2. So do I have any check? So I have bishop h6 check, bishop h6 check, king g8 seems to be the only move. King g8, let's say queen g4 check, there's bishop, okay, so let me just take my time and calculate. So after bishop h6 check, king g8, queen g4, I guess, because I don't want to play rook takes g2, queen takes g2, doesn't work. So after queen g4 check, bishop g6. I can take on g2, queen takes g2, rook takes g2. The bishop is pinned, so I can finally recapture. So I'll take, we check. Yeah, so that is, the computer doesn't even prompt me. So there's queen takes h2 check. There's no way for the king on g1 to escape. So queen takes h2 checkmate. So white to move. I think the only obvious moves here is queen d7. I don't want to play rook d7 because the king escapes to e8, and if I move the rook back, giving a check, the king can always like move. But I mean, I'll always be able to win the rook regardless, but it's just much safer to deliver checkmate. So queen d7 is, oh, so queen d7 can be played. So this is why I need to do a lot of tactics. So queen d7 can be played, may be my only option. Then the move I was dislodging, which is rook d7 check, seems to be the only move in this position. So rook d7, push away the king, and after that I have queen c8 checkmate. So that is mate. So black to move, queen d2 check, king f1 only move, queen f2 is checkmate because the king can't go here and he can't come back. So that seems to be the more accurate move, because if I try something like I can't play bishop b4 because the bishop is pinned, so I'll play queen d2 check and queen f2 is mate. So king e4, I think the king is walking into a mating net. So queen d4 check seems to be the obvious. I can't play rook f4 because the bishop takes on f4. So if queen d4 check, the king can't go back. He can't move here because he can't come here, he can't come here, so that would be mate. So queen d4 is mate. And these queen takes g6 strikes me as to be the best move. Queen takes g6, king h8 is first, and after queen g7 it should be mate. But if I decide to take with the rook, I give the option for the king to run this way, and that will not be the best option. So I'll probably just take with the queen, and this should be checkmate. So e5 by white. The king for sure is weak. So if I play queen g3 check, those are my obvious check. Queen g3 check, and I don't think I have any more check. I mean, I can play queen bishop g4, but after bishop e7, there's no way for me to like get there. Maybe I can play queen g2, but queen g2, bishop takes g4, and queen takes h1 check. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't look extremely interesting. So if queen g3 check, let's say he decides to run with the king, he is going to lose the queen. So queen g3, and that seems like queen g3, king d7 can be played. No, king d2. I'm still trying to get used to naming the squares. So if queen g3 check, king d2, then I have queen e3 checkmate. So here, well, it doesn't continue from there. So here, I don't think I have any check, and I mean, knight d2 strike me to be a very good move. I don't know if I can prove it. Knight d2 forks the rook and the queen. If knight d2, bishop h5 check, and after g6, so white is going to be down too many pawns. So okay, so knight d2. Oh, that was a mistake. But why would that be a mistake? Wow, I need to be more serious. So knight d2 was a mistake. Wish I could show it. Let me see if I won't mess up my setup. Okay, so knight d2 was a mistake because of what exactly? So why is knight d2 a mistake in this position? Oh, if knight d2, bishop h5, g6, knight takes g6. If I take the queen, it takes back my queen as well. Oh, really? If knight d2, yeah, maybe I should have just take. If queen takes, then I'm able to play knight d2 at the end. Or just play even g5. Okay, that was a huge mistake. So I will come back to it. I have 3 more misses, and before everything ends. So if rook g3, fg3, queen takes g3 check should be mate. After knight g2, queen takes g2 should be checkmate. If queen takes on g3, fg3, rook takes g3, the king has an escape square on h2, and there's no way for me to deliver checkmate. So if rook g3, if white tries king h2, I have rook g2 check with double check. If the king comes here now, then there's queen h2 mate. So rook g3 check mate. So there's obviously a back rank issue. So after the check on d7, the king has to go to b8, and after queen d8, sacking the queen. After rook takes d8, rook takes d8 will be mate. So queen d7 takes, and this is checkmate. So the only thing that looks obvious to me is queen e8 check. But after king h7, rook f8. Okay, even after let's say rook takes g2, queen takes g2, and there's just no way for black. So if queen e8, is there any other try? If queen takes, I just take. So black loses their queen. And after, because if I decide to start with this, the king can take, or even the queen can take. So it's better to just play queen e8 check. And after, I think rook here should be yes. So black has decided to sacrifice the queen, because that would almost be checkmate because of the queen on e8 controlling the g6 square. So black to move and win. Something obvious I see is playing queen e8, queen a1 check. Knight here is forced. Is it forced? So queen a1 check, there's bishop c, yeah, even that one. So I have to, no, that's a mistake. I didn't intentionally do that. That's a mouse slip. I have 1 more attempt now. Yeah, that was a mouse slip. I did not do that intentionally. Let's get a better mouse. So yeah, that's just so bad. I shouldn't do that. That was the correct move. So white to move and win. So white to move and win. Rook h4 check. The king comes here now. Okay. If bishop f7, so I think bishop f7, the king can still come here now. And after h4, check. The king can't go here, the king can't go here, the king can't come here. So bishop here, check, and after this should be mate. Yes. So white to move. This strike me as the only check available in this position, because if I decide to go rook f8, doesn't work. Even something like this doesn't work because my rook will be lost. So rook f7 check, king here or king here is the only move. So either way, black is going to come back to g7, and after bringing the other rook to f7, it will be checkmate. So check here, and rook f7 is checkmate. So rook g8. What's my immediate check? C4 check. Black king can't take, and there's no way for black to do an in-person. So the bishop on b5 is doing a great job blocking the king escape, and black has decided to box in its own king with the bishop on e6, and the pawn on f3 is doing a great job as well, preventing king e4. So I think c4 is mate. So if rook takes, it's just a piece exchange, and I'm down 2 pawns. So definitely it has to be a way to give a checkmate in this position or win a piece. So if I decide to try rook e8 check, bishop e3 or king d1 has to be the only move. So let me calculate bishop e3 first. If bishop e3, rook takes e3, king here, then I have rook to d5 checkmate. So if king d1, I have rook d5 still. Then the only move, no, really, yes. So if king here, king d1, then I have rook d5 mate, rook d5 check, and after bishop e2, I have rook takes e2 checkmate, because the rook on e8 is controlling the escape square for the king. So check. And in this position, I definitely want to give a fuck, but the bishop on c8 is going to capture. So maybe I have a checkmate in this position. So the most logical checkmate is to sack the knight, and after rook takes knight, I have queen h5 check, and the king can't go to g8. So the only available squares is g7 or rook to h7. If rook to h7, queen takes h7 is mate, and if king g6, queen h7 is still mate, because this knight is defended and there's no way for black to escape. So I'll give a check. So decide to move with the king. How strange. So if queen here check, they take, and after rook, yes, there's no way for them to get to the square, so this has to be the move. Yes. So white is offering a queen trade in this position, but it doesn't seem viable. So queen c1 looks obvious as a check, because if I do rook f1, queen f1 check, the queen is just going to take. And if I'm slow with g3, the queen trade, and these pawns are fast running, and I'll be down a rook in this position. So after queen c1 check, to prolong the mate, white can decide to sack the queen, and after queen takes f2, king h2, g3 is checkmate. So check, and the mate is inevitable. Okay, so this looks obvious because it opens the file for the bishop, because if I try something like f here, if bishop takes, I don't have access to this f7 file. And check, if king comes here, checkmate. So No, is that checkmate? Check. There's king D. Oh wow, that's not mate. Oh, that's not mate. Oh wow, that's not mate. I thought that was mate. Wow, it's not. Queen takes f7 check, king d8. And how is d8 going to be? Excuse me. Bishop takes f7. This king e7. And if queen takes f7 check, king d8. Oh, I can take the bishop on g7. And after bc4, I can always take the rook. Okay. Yeah. So that's the plan. Yes. So I have knight h6 check. If gh6, bishop g3. So I have bishop g3. I have queen g3 check. That I don't think is the move. Why does it appear to me that this queen is lost? Yeah, it appears that the queen is trapped after rook. After rook e2 check, rook e2, I think the queen is trapped. So let me try and work it out. Because I don't see an obvious move. If knight e6 check, gh6, queen g3 check, and bishop g7, there's no way for me to get to the king. I just sacrifice a knight for nothing. But after rook e2 now, the queen can, so let me work it out. The only escape square for this queen is hypothetically to take here, to go here, to go here, to go here, and to go here and here. So this is covered. B2 is going to be covered after rook. So if rook e2 now, so let's say rook e2, the queen can't go here because the knight is going to capture. The queen can't go here because the knight is going to capture. The queen can't take up b2 because the rook is going to take. So I think rook e2. So this is winning. So in this position, okay, in this position, okay. So let's say rook g2, king takes g2, queen e5 check. No, there's no queen e5 because the king is on light square. So obviously I can't play something like that. So I have to look for a way. So if rook takes, bishop takes, queen takes, with check, then I'm down a piece. If queen takes f2, rook takes f2, I'm down a queen. But if rook takes, how can I give a check and be able to win this pawn? I need to find a way. If rook takes seems to be the only move. Then if rook takes, the f2 pawn is loose. F2 check, king g1 only move, and after queen here, and after queen f1, king h2, then I'm able to pick up the queen. I'm able to pick up this. Then I'll be up. Yes. So rook takes. Wow. So white has to sacrifice the queen because the rook is going to be lost at some point. Yes. So I have one more try to get to beat my all-time record, which is 36. And in this position, black to move. Do I have check? The crazy move that comes to mind is queen takes h3 check, gh3. So there's no gh3 because of the bishop on a8. So I'm happy to know that queen takes h3 is not a crazy move. So if queen takes h3, what immediate checks do black have? Well, there's no immediate check because queen takes h3 is check, so the king is forced to move, which is if king g1, queen h2 check. So queen takes h3, king g1 is forced, queen h2 check, king f1, and queen h1 is checkmate because the king is not in time to come to c2, which is the only available square, because even this monstrous bishop on the f4 is covering the d, and the rook here are just boxing in the king, so that's a checkmate. So I need 10 more to beat my all-time record. So in this position, white to move. So knight e7 seems to be winning me a piece, but how viable is that? So knight e7 seems to be obvious to be the move in this position. So knight e7, let's say king here, knight takes g8, rook g8, and let's say g3. I have 6 pawns. They have 2, 4, 5, and I have a rook for a knight, so that is completely winning. So I can take check. I can't step to here because that will be check. After knight f, I'll be losing a pawn. I can't go here, so the only safe square is just to go to h2 because knight here now I'll be completely safe. Knight here, yes. Okay, so king here has to be the only move. Yes, that was the only move because stepping on the last square would have allowed the knight's fork. So I have to find a way to get my queen to g7 to deliver mate. So my only option is to deflect the rule, which is queen takes f6 checks. After rook takes f6, I have rook e8 check, and rook f8 is false, and after rook takes f8 will be checkmate because of this beautiful pawn on h6. So I have to sack the queen, rook e8 check, and this is checkmate. So I think taking on b3 with the queen allowed the king to escape. So rook takes b3 should be mate, but I don't think it is. Oh, I think queen takes b3 is best because after rook takes b3, there's king c2. So if queen b2, there's king here, and there's just no way for me to get away. But if queen here now check, queen here check, if king here, queen b2 is mate. I want to like say the name of the squares just to get used to it. So if queen b3 check, if king c1, queen b1 check, queen b1 is mate, right? Yeah, queen b1 is mate. Yeah, I thought the king can escape and I will winning the king on h1 anyways. So white to move, I can see options of fork in these positions. So with knight here now, forking the rook on d8 and e5. what move does black have? Check, king here. Oh wow. Oh, so this is why I have to take my time and calculate. Black escape with very beautiful position. So if I play knight f7, which is the most obvious move, there's rook e1 check. After king d2, there's king um uh, okay. So king d2, yeah, king d2, and after king d2, there's just rook e7, saving the rook, right? Because if the king decide, even I can just, yeah, because if the king decides to step away, given a check, discover check, the rook on e1 is lost. So rook e8 just save the rook, and I'm still down a rook, and I would still be losing in this position. So, excuse me. The best solution I came up with is rook d2 check. If the king move, I take. After king takes, then I have knight f6 check, forking the king and the rook. Then I'll be able to just pick up the rook. So this check, and I'll be up a piece in this position. So white to move, check. There's a back rank issue because if I decide to take first, I think there's all sort of check. So taking here, and taking on e8 is check. Bishop f8 is completely false because there's no escape king for black king, square for black king. So after bishop f8, I have queen takes f8 mate. So check. In this position, the bishop on e7 is pinned. If I play knight f6, the king can't come here because of the bishop on h6. There's no escape square for d7 because the knight covers d7 and e8, and the bishop can't take because it is pinned. So that is mate. So I have 4 more to beat my all-time record, and this is where it start getting tough now. So it seems to me that the pawn on h6 is doing a great job of not allowing the king on f8 to escape. So after queen d8 check, the king can't come to e7. Obviously, there's no escape square on g7 because of the pawn on h6. So that should be mate. If I decide to go queen h8, the king can only escape, and I think I would soon run out of check with that. So mate. So white to move in this position. Do I have any immediate check? So obviously what I'm saying is to take, knight take, if I take now, so this is a very tricky position. If I take with the queen, the knight is no more hanging. So what I can do now is take on e7. If the rook takes, obviously I take the queen. So what black is going to do is, if I take, queen take is check. Oh no, I can't do that. Oh wow, I can't do that. Obviously I can't. Oh no, queen takes is not check. Yeah, sorry, I was hallucinating. Queen takes d1 is not check. So that's why I have to name that's why I have to say it out loud, the name of the squares, so that I would not keep making this mistake. So rook takes e7, there's no rook e7 because the queen on d5 hangs. So black is going to try to take on d1, and after queen takes d1, I have an intermezzo with rook takes e8 check, rook takes e8, and after rook takes d1, I'll be having a rook, a knight, and a bishop for black, rook, and a bishop. I'll be having 5 pawns. So I'll be having an extra knight for their extra pawn on d6. So take, check, and take. So that was the sequence. So I have 2 more moves to tie with my highest score. Okay. Wow. So I can take, if ed5, which seems to be the more obvious move, if ed5 now, if ed5, king c1, rook a1 check, king d2, rook takes h1, then I have 2 rooks, a bishop against the queen. If I go rook a1 check now, bishop takes a1, rook takes a1 check, and I'm losing. So obviously if I take on if I take on e4, so I mean taking on d4 seems to be the most obvious move in this position. So ed4, there's ideas of this, but after check, okay. So if ed4, black can decide to play rook d1 with the idea of after rook a8, rook a1 check, king b2, rook a2 check, no, rook a8 to a2 check. Yeah, that's the proper, and there's no king c3 because of the pawn on d4, so I would have to take. So this I said to calculate to the end before making a move. So after king c1 here, rook a8, no, rook a1 check, king d2 only move, then I take the rook on h1, and 2 rook and a bishop should be able to like overwhelm the queen. So yes, with the idea of even bringing the second rook to the rank. So I'll check, take, yes, so that is mate. Okay, so knight f3 looks very obvious to me. There's knight f3 check and there's knight h3 check. Now I have to calculate the difference between the two moves. Oh, excuse me. So if knight f3 check, king h1 only move. How do I get to the king? I don't have any way of getting to the king. So my best option now is to do something like knight h3 check. Because after king h1, I have knight f2 check, and if king g2, I have knight h3 check, king h1, then the rook can take on h1. If the king, so let me calculate again. So knight h3 check, king h1 only move, knight takes f2 check, king g2, king g2 only move. No, king g2 is not the only move. Black can decide to sack the rook with rook takes f2, but after rook takes f2, king g2, then the bishop on b2 is hanging. So knight f3 is much better compared to knight f3, because knight f3, king h1, I don't have a check. So let me do knight h3 check, and this, and the bishop on b2 will be traded. So white is offering a trade, and that seems to be suspicious in this position. So let's count the pawn. 1, so h6, g5, f7, d6, b7, and a6. So that is 6 pawn for white. h2, g2, f4, and a2. So that is 4 pawns. So I have an extra 2 pawns, but black has white has an extra rook. So trading in this position is probably losing. So what I can try now is okay. So the most obvious move, if I take with the queen, the rook can take. So what I can do is gf5 check. If king h4, So gf5 check, king h4, queen f2 check. There's no king h3, so the king has to step to h4. So king h4, then I have no, I don't have queen h5 check. So gf4 check, king h4, oh, queen h4, I have queen e7 check, king h5, then I have queen g5 check. So queen f7 doesn't work because there's this beautiful h5 square for white king, so the king escapes. So let me calculate it again. So after gf5, if I decide to step forward to h4 is the with the king, stepping to h4 is the only move. But after queen e7 check, the king can't come here, so h4 is the only move. So queen h4, then I have queen g5, which should be checkmate. So that is the first move. If gf4 now, if rook takes on f4, what is my move? Rook f4, rook g8 check. If rook g8 check, rook blocks, queen takes. Okay, so gf4, rook takes f4, rook g8 check, king h4 now, then I have queen e2 again check. But if queen e2, queen e2, then after king h5, I still have queen g5 checkmate. So the rook taking away the square. So that is the move. So I have rook g1 to chase away. So if you rook, I have to calculate all the way to the end before making a move. I didn't calculate all the responses. So rook g8 now, there's rook g4, but rook takes g4, there's no bishop takes g4 because that is the bishop here is pinned. So if bishop takes, so what about bishop? So there's no bishop, so there's no bishop g4, and if rook g4, rook takes g4 is mate, because no, rook takes g4 is not mate because there's always king. There's king g, there's king g, there's king g, there's king h3. If king h3, then I have rook c4 discovered check. Yeah, so yeah, so obviously yes, I I smashed my all-time record. Yes, even though I made a mistake earlier on, I smashed my all-time record. Let's see if I can push it further. So the knight on c3 is pinned, and I have two knight, a bishop, two rooks. I have a to b2, d5. So a to b2, d5, e4, f to g2, and h2. That is 7 pawns for black. h6, g7, f6, f7. So 7 pawns for black as well. No, 8 pawns for black because of c4. So I have to count it all the way down. And black is threatening to take here, 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 and keep their pawn advantage. And after f5, I have to find a way. So the obvious thing that comes to my mind is playing this check, queen a4 check. There's no knight here because there's d5. So let me calm down and calculate. If queen a4 looks interesting, queen a4 check, knight c6, d6, bishop takes c3, bc3. If pawn takes now, I take back, right? So what would be the pawn material? No, this is just an equal trade, right? After bc3, it's just an equal trade, so they lose their knight. So queen e4 and taking. I have to calculate to the end. What am I doing? Take. Now up a piece. So I've smashed my all-time record by 2 points. So I have an idea of playing queen. So if I start with rook d8 check, rook d8, rook takes d8, rook takes d8, black has king b7, and I don't have queen a6 now because the king is on b7. So what if I start with queen a6 check, forcing the king to b8, and after that I play rook d8 check, rook takes d8, rook takes d8 check. Now rook takes d8 checkmate because there's no king b7. So I think starting with queen a6 is better. So this is mate after rook takes d8. Pawn end games. Whoa. So I would gain the opposition when the king steps on g7. So the obvious moves to me is king g6, king f8, king f8, king h7. So okay. Okay. So after king g6, king f8. So if I take king g8, g5, king h8, d6, king g8, g7. Now there's king here, so the king has to go to f7, right? So let me calculate it again. So if king g6, king f8, king takes h6, king g8, g5. What if g5, let me first calculate g5, king h8, g6, king g8, g7, king h8 check, and king h8 and king g6 is going to be stalemate. So after king g6, king f8, king h8, king f7, if king f7 now, king f7, king takes h6, king g8 again now. Oh, so I get what I can do. So what I can do is king g6, king f8, king h6, king f7, king takes h6. If king g8 is tried, Then I have king g6, and if king here, then I can step here and just promote my king. So let's say king g6, king f8, king takes h6, king g8, king g6 now. So it's almost like it's the same position if I take or play king h7. Oh, it's not the same position. Ah, wow. I think this has to be the hardest one I'm solving yet. So king g6 now, king f8, king takes h6, king f7. No, yeah, king f7, g5, king g8, g6, king h8, g7 check, king g8. Oh, this is just so hard for me to make calculate of the root. I can't see the final position. So king g6, king f8, king takes h6, king f7. If g5, king f8, g6, king g8, g7. I just can't calculate it. Yeah, I just have to make a move. Oh, they make it a lot easier now. If I take king here, wow. If I take king here, where do I go from here on? So what about g6? Now what about g5? King f8, king h7, h4, d6, h3, d7, h2, and I have queen. If takes, I'm worried about king f8, and after king h6, I don't have any square to like guard my pawn, so g5. Oh, then I lost. Oh my days. 39. Well, that's something to be proud of. This is my first time getting all time. It says I've had more than 39 before. Really? Really? I've had more than 39 before. Wow. So apparently I've had more than 35 before. Oh, so my all-time score used to be 39. So I've never broken to 40. I thought it was 36. So that's too bad. So what was the move in this position? So what I had to do was, I think what I had to do was, so I was stuck. Let me see if you can see. Yes, you can see it a little bit. Yeah, at least you can see a little. So I was stuck here, and king g6. I think it could go. I was calculating this here, but apparently g5 here now. Then I had king g6 forcing here. Yeah, this I was able to calculate here now. And after this, and even king h7 still went. If king s7, then I take king f6, take here, g6 here, g7. Yes, this was the final position I saw. But after what they played, so what I had to do was, now what I did was, after this I saw king f8, and there was just no way for me to like pawn. So my what I forgot to do was calculate every single move. I was running out of patience, which shouldn't be the case. So I should have calculated that here, I have king h6, king f7, then g5, king here, king g6, check here, and after this I'm able to make a new queen. So this is the end of the end of the end of the first puzzle survivor video. So I was able to make it to 39, tying up with my all-time record. Well, I would have had one more grace if I didn't mouth slipped on this move, which I was got. So this was the only one that I was very skeptical about. And in this position, what I played was knight d2. So why was knight d2 not the best move? So let me check with the engine. Knight d2, okay. So I played knight d2. Why knight d2 was not the best is that there's just bishop takes d2, and after take now there's rook a e1. There's rook a e1 in a way that this is spin. So after castles, d6 check, queen f7, queen takes. Then I'm just down a piece, I guess. So in this position, prior to this position, like after this stock is like just like a very great attack for white here. Takes, rook takes, knight b5, and there's no way for me to contest this position. Even knight c6 now. I mean bishop c4. Bishop c4. Oh, then so what if I play king takes f8 here now? Bishop h5 check. g6 is just, and this absolutely wins. So that was why knight d2 was a mistake. So that was the only move I knew I got incorrectly, and puzzle rating of 2234. So this is the end of the first puzzle rush video. So I got 39. Hopefully next time I will aim for 40. So if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.